aware that your perfect family may be under threat by germs? Germs can cause infectious diseases like diarrhea, typhoid, and flu. These infectious diseases are amongst the biggest killers of adults and children. In Nigeria, tens of thousands of children under the age of 5 have died due to diarrhea caused by germs, which could easily have been prevented. These illness-causing germs are everywhere. Dirty surfaces, on cuts and wounds, on your clothes, in unclean bathing water. To protect your family from germs, use the power of Dettol's 1 capful. For surface cleaning, for first aid, for your laundry, in your bathing water, and to protect your family from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Be Dettol sure.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now it's time for us to take some business stories. And here is our correspondent, Ronami Girani.
The global crisis caused by the coronavirus is forcing Nigerian business owners to rethink their growth targets for the year 2020. With closed borders, reduced consumer demand, bank loans to repay, and almost non-existent credit lines, capital market investors have urged banks to ease the access to credit for the sector by reducing the cost of credit to micro, small, and medium enterprises in order to cushion the effect of this global pandemic. Meanwhile, the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa proposes intra-Africa trade as a way to mitigate the rapidly growing economic insecurity caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. As Africa's major trading partners struggle to contain the effect of the coronavirus on their economies, an opportunity to deepen continental trade has presented itself. Director of the ECA's Regional Integration and Trade Division, Stephen Keringi, insists on the need for the continent to urgently implement the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, as the intra-African market could help mitigate some of the negative effects caused by COVID-19 by limiting dependence on foreign partners, especially with regards to basic food and pharmaceuticals. The African Continental Free Trade Agreement is set to commence in July 2020. The coronavirus pandemic is also affecting the almighty gold, which is no longer a safe haven for investors as the precious metal defies market rules and continues its downward spiral, experiencing its worst week in 40 years. Gold, which is normally seen as a reliable store of value in times of uncertainty, is trading at over 2% below Monday's value at $1,499 per ounce. Now let's head to the floor of the stock exchange to see how markets fared yesterday, the 18th of March, 2020. With business news, I'm Ronami Egirani.
Thank you so much, Ronami, for that business package. Up next is newspaper review.
Super Reviewer Bayo Atomibe is with us on the studios for today's review session. Bayo, good morning and welcome.
Thank you, Tisile. Good morning.
Good morning,
Good morning, good morning. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right, Jume.
Yes, we have just 2 newspapers today. I begin with the Daily Sun newspaper. Just beside the masthead, FG slashes petrol price to 125, with rider, diesel, kerosene also affected. You find that story on page 2. And the bold headlines there: amid 5 new coronavirus cases, FG bans flights from US, UK, 11 others, and cancels visas on arrival and other visas. You find that story on page 6, 40 and 41. With a rider, Northwest governors to close school for 2 weeks. Lagos bans religious gathering of more than 50 persons. And the picture story there, you see National Youth Service Corps members leaving the camp in Kubwa, Abuja, following the suspension of national orientation exercise by the federal government over coronavirus yesterday. And just below the masthead, at the bottom plate of the Daily Sun newspaper, federal government cuts 2020 budget by 1.5 trillion naira, with riders hinges benchmark on $30 per barrel and stops recruitment. 2 doctors, district head, 13 others die of Lassa fever in Bauchi. Find that story on page 5 and page 8. Insurgency, Nigeria at war. That's coming from the Senate, and calls for land aerial bombardment of insurgents. You find that story on page 6. JAMB releases more UTME results. That story is on page 3.
Okay, let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. The front page is pretty busy. So right from above the nameplate right to the bottom, let's say above the nameplate, oil price sinks to $24, lowest in 17 years. NNPC reduces petrol pump price to 125 naira per litre. FARC meeting ends in deadlock over revenue remittances. And federal government slashes budget by 1.5 trillion naira and reduces benchmark to $30. 2 earpieces beside the nameplate. Reps summon Emefiele and ex-Mint bosses over 8-year unaudited accounts. JAMB releases another 450,000 UTME results. That's page 12. And lead story says mother, baby, and 3 others test positive as cases rise to 18. That's, of course, obvious reference to coronavirus. The number of riders there, American contact of Ekiti case dies. Nigerian companion tests negative. Government faces tough task, traces 800 contacts. Northwest and Kwara close schools, and Lagos and Ogun banned gathering of over 50 people. Lagos State Government shuts Lagos State Government schools. Well, this is says LASG schools shut. It would appear to be Lagos State Government schools only, but the closure order is actually for both private and public schools. So let's say Lagos State Government shut schools. Then the photographs of the NYSC there, suspending orientation and discharging corps members. That's on page 23. Bauchi local government polls hold in June after 13 years. NCDC records 9 Lassa fever deaths, 51 new cases. 2 die in Plateau well and rescuer injured. And then, of course, you have the other headlines there. But the CBN has also announced, that story is there right at the foot of the front page. CBN announces 1.1 trillion naira intervention fund to boost economy. Bayo.
Well, the stories in the newspapers are all dominated by coronavirus. And Nigeria has recorded 5 new cases, bringing the total to 8. Nigeria has confirmed 5 new cases. 4 of the cases are in Lagos and 1 is in Ekiti. Of the 5, 3 came from the United States. There's 1 that came from across the border from Benin Republic. The 2 others are a Nigerian mother and an infant of 6 weeks old, being the youngest to be infected by the coronavirus. The 2 others also came in from the United Kingdom, and they are all Nigerians. For now, the concern is that the Minister of Health has enjoined all to be calm and not to panic. And therefore, we should entrust the competencies of our health personnel who will apply all possible scientific measures to try and advise and check the spread of coronavirus. In Katsina, the Commissioner for Health, Kabir Mustafa, has also announced a suspected case from Malaysia. The person who is suspected to have been for malaria presented with diarrhea. He had attended the conference in Malaysia. They are expecting results from the test. Across the state in Kano, 3 suspected persons have also all tested negative. So far, we now have 8 reported cases. And if you look at all the 8 cases, you have just 1 coming across the border. All the others came through flies into the country. Throughout, there's also the indication that the lady who came through from United Kingdom was suspected to have coronavirus, traveled from Lagos to Enugu through Owerri, apparently has been reported to have died. You recall that she was tested and she was negative to coronavirus. The indications are that she probably gave up the life from underlying sickness, but this has not been confirmed by the Ministry of Health. Meanwhile, measures are now taken across the nation to check the coronavirus. Already, travel ban has been placed on 13 endemic countries. These are countries that have reported cases of more than 1,000. Visa on arrival has been suspended. No foreign trip is to be approved for government officials. The president has also approved the reduction in the pump price to 125 naira. And the interesting thing about the pump price is that Nigerians trust them. They rushed to filling stations yesterday and said they are waiting for their engineers to adjust the pump price. Actually, it's supposed to take effect from today. But you remember, anytime there has been pump price increase, it has always been automatic. But whenever there have been a reduction, they are always slow to comply. Lagos has restricted religious activities beyond 50, and the NYSC has terminated orientation who was going on at camps across the country. It was the orientation were in their first week. Also, Northwest governors gathered at Kaduna, and they were joined by their counterparts from Niger and Kwara State, and they have ruled that with effect from Monday, all schools are to close in the state. And this is very instructive in the sense that we are already approaching the Easter holiday break. Yeah. So all they need to do now is extend the Easter holiday break and then ensure that when they are to resume, they resume earlier so that the time that has been lost due to the corona closure of schools can be regained back on the other way. Now, 2020 budget is also affected. The Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning announced the approval of 1.5 trillion to be slashed from the budget 2020. The recommendation has been approved by Mr. President. It was announced after the Federal Executive Council. The capital project will suffer a cut of about 20%. Guideline has been sent to ministries, departments, and agencies about how they will adjust that. You recall that the budget was 10.59 trillion, and oil benchmark, which was $57 per barrel, is now put at $30 per barrel. Upstream activities of the NNPC has now been suspended. Reference projects by revenue projection by the Nigeria Custom has also been reduced. It is now reduced by 1.5 trillion. Across the world, the impact is also massive. Europe, America, and the Middle East, many of the major cities, have actually been shut down. There are restrictions on inter- and intrastate movements, especially in Europe, and the Vatican, as well as the Church of England, has cancelled masses and advised persons to worship at home. Saudi Arabia and Iran has also announced cancellation of group worships. In Saudi Arabia, worship at the Grand Mosque at Mecca and the Prophet Mosque at Medina are to continue. National Assembly is also suggesting that not only should we just ban travel or flight from endemic countries, but persons coming from the endemic countries upon arrival should be quarantined. In fact, the recommendation from the National Assembly is that we should restrict all flights into the country to only 2 airports, Lagos and Abuja, so that we'll be able to manage scientifically at least all entries. Because from all indications, of all the 8 cases, only 1 came through land border. The other 7 came through the airports. Therefore, if we are to track and manage the crisis, the location should be at the airports.
Okay, Bayo, as you said, I mean, you have a raft of issues to discuss this morning in terms of the stories on the front pages, but virtually all the stories are taking their bearing from the coronavirus pandemic around the world and how Nigeria, of course, is responding. I just want to touch on a few of them. You earlier referenced the fall in crude oil prices and therefore the consequential directive for the pump price of petrol to also come down to around 25 naira per liter. The directive is supposed to take effect today. Now, what we would expect to see is that consumers should not be at the mercy of petrol station attendants. the DPR, and now we have the Federal Competition Commission. That's formerly the CPC, that's the Consumer Protection Council. Yes, they should be out there to ensure that filling stations, comply with this directive. I mean, the intention is not that only NNPC mega stations will be selling at 125. Their usual alibi will be, oh, the stock we had, we bought it at so much. Now, assuming the price went up from 145 to 150 or 185, you can be sure that by this morning, of course, there will be long queues, and then they will adjust their pump meters, adjust their pump meters, and they profit from it. So this is another one now. I mean, you take it. That's the way. That's the way it goes.
Must be part of the process.
But let's also bear in mind what this means. So as consumers, it's a topic we are going to discuss. So we'll get our guests to also focus on that. When crude oil prices then rise, and assuming that we are unable to ramp up our own domestic crude refining capacity, it also means that the pump price will also change. So that when it changes, people will not be saying, oh, this government or whichever government is then in force, so it has brought hardship upon Nigerians. That's part of what we should, generally watch out for. I don't know whether, not you, these road transport workers, will take a cue from this and also slash transport fares. Yes. Because it's their usual alibi.
Yes. It's puzzling because when it comes to economy, this is what happens. Already, the indications are that the landing price of petrol is now about 70 naira. Yeah. And I think this will have been a wonderful opportunity to completely eliminate what has been called subsidy and sometimes called undercover, completely from the petroleum products, and let the market forces determine it. Corona has brought us this silver lining for us, if possible, to wash our hands off subsidy of petroleum products. Meanwhile, there are frantic efforts to ensure that the refineries are properly put in performing gear so that they can refine what we consume. Luckily for us, expectedly, anytime this year, Dangote's refinery is also expected to come upstream. With all those coming in, then the consequences and necessity for petroleum subsidy gradually should fade away.
Okay, Bayo, just this last point about the response of some state governments. Yes. Lagos State, Kwara, and then states in the Northwest Zone. They are closing down public and private schools. I think that this is necessary as part of the preventive measures, but this also should be done in consultation with some other stakeholders. Now, the WAEC, or this SSC exam, let me just call it WASC, as we used to call it in those days. Those exams are due to start sometime in early April or thereabout. So if the schools are closed, are you also shifting those exams? I mean, those exams are conducted by the West African Examinations Council. So I think that this is very important for parents, for the pupils themselves, and indeed for those who are conducting the exam to say, look, what is the implication of you shutting down the schools? Yes, those who are in JSS1 or SS2 will not be affected. But if you are in SS3, you have an external exam to write. So how does this affect you?
In fact, when the governors of the Northwest met yesterday, the chairman of the meeting, Governor of Katsina State, categorically emphasized that. He appealed to examination bodies, NECO, West Africa Examination Council, to take into consideration the situation and also cooperate by adjusting their calendar and timetable for the examination so that the students will not be adversely affected.
Yeah, but why hasn't they ought to consult with them and say, look, what is the best time for us to do this? I think that's one of the things that
this coronavirus challenge is universal and is also national. If you want sub-national, WAEC is West Africa all the whole, and precisely. I'm sure they will be sensitive enough to react to these consequences. Because even the closure of schools is not only in Nigeria. Across the West African sub-region, schools, churches have all closed. Yeah,
well, some of them are closing, certainly not all. A few of them are still there. Bayo Chebe, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow. All right, it's Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you on the network service of the NTA. We'll take a short break now.
Nigeria is our country, and it's the only country we have. Irrespective of religion, tribe, the heroes of our past did their best to take Nigeria to where it is today. It will be unfortunate, I repeat, unfortunate, absolutely, if we don't keep Nigeria intact. We must put our differences behind. We must let everybody know that human beings cannot live together without some differences. But at the end of the day, our country is Nigerian. It must always come first.
Get ready for the Unity Challenge reality TV show. Coming soon.
Engineering skills and technology define the quality of television transmission output. Training and retraining of appropriate personnel on the management of modern equipment is therefore a key competition strategy in the dynamic television industry. NTA TV College, Jos, invites relevant desk officers to special engineering courses as follows. 1-week course on audio engineering, operations and maintenance. Date 20th to 24th April 2020. 1-week intensive course on electrical power, earthing, lighting, uninterrupted power supply UPS, inverter and solar system. Date 1st to 5th June 2020. 1-week intensive course on studio broadcast equipment and outside broadcast operation. Date 15th to 19th June 2020. 1-week course on new technologies, optical fiber, IP technologies, automation storage and wireless technology. Date 10th to 14th August 2020. The venue for all courses is NTA Television College, near Old Government House, Rayfield, Jos. Course fee 40,000 naira per participant. Accommodation inclusive. For more inquiries, please call 0803-314-4383 or 0806-980-9807. NTA TV College, Jos. Training you to be the best you want to be.
Some of the girls were having difficulties in their academics, and they now decided to ask us to help out. And we've decided to teach them other things, other skills. To invest in a woman is really to invest in a nation, because the women really are the heart of the family.
As you know, kids' exam time is exam time for moms too. The child prepares intensely, so does the mom, taking care of every little thing. But germs can ruin it all.